Future trading involves risk and is not suitable for all investors. Content provided in this segment is meant for educational purposes and is not a solicitation to buy or sell commodities.
Hi, it's Steve and Joe from Fresh Agenda, Everraise Global Insights team. And Steve, we're here but not together.
Yeah, I'm a long way away from you, Joe, which is, I'm not sure we've tried this recently, but I'm in Singapore and it's morning. I'm at the NZX SGX Global Dairy Seminar. Day two of that is about to kick off. So let's see how this rolls.
Yeah, fingers crossed. So, Steve, we're just going to go through a few market changes over the last week.
Obviously, the big talking point in the world market is EU butter. And in the last week, the futures market hasn't moved very much at all. There isn't much news. I guess blue tongue cases, new cases are slowing. There was some fear that the thing was, I guess, overestimated and a bit dramatic, but I think the milk collection story across Europe is still very mixed and unclear. So a lot of confusion. And in terms of the butter market, while the butter prices have fallen, cream and spot milk have only moved down a little bit. So I think this is a watch and see. We come to a chart I've put together here, Joe, showing the butter futures compared to over-the-counter trades in the last week. This is a new chart, proudly unveiled here. And what it's showing the latest futures below the recent trades in that week. So that's still a downtrend. I mean, that business would have been written when things were a little bit better, probably early last week, most of that trade. So there's still a downward bias here.
Yeah, and just looking at the CME butter futures, Steve, the butter market in the US is continuing to weaken. So we had some strong butter output data out of August, strong year on year growth, better cream availability. So are we now seeing a bit more of a normalizing of butter prices because we are a little bit above the typical tolerance, buyer tolerance in terms of pricing? And there are ample stocks and a bit of a slowdown in demand, Steve. So we're just seeing that market drop. And in terms of New Zealand and US pricing, just looking at this butter comparison, it's similar for New Zealand and the US, but the US has suddenly become a cheaper source. And of course, AMF is at a discount to these butter prices.
Looking across to skim milk powder, Joe, and the EEX futures, it's also, but this is the one with the most action, I guess. Not much movement across skim milk powder pricing in the past week. Just a little weaker in the short term in Europe. I think that's possibly a little bit about, as a flat result in last week's GDT event. There is a little bit more skim milk concentrate around. Prices of that have fallen a little, so that's possibly what's behind this. But there's still quite poor demand expectations out there. Talking around the event here yesterday, that's still a major talking point.
Yeah, and just this comparison, Steve, for
Yeah,
skim.
so New Zealand's still the value buy in the shorter term, and I think the expectation more New Zealand milk is being priced into that discount. I think that's probably the same tune we called last week. Whole milk powder isn't changing very much, so we're still left with that overhang of skim milk powder coming to the market in the next few months. So, Joe, US trade is quite a big update. This has just come out this morning, our time.
Yeah, so we've got some US export data for August, Steve. And overall, trade was up 8% in milk solids equivalent terms. It's remaining very strong for cheese, up 15% year on year. And that's really a story about Mexico and South Korea. Skim milk powder was flat. Mexico was back up year on year, but it's really a bit of a loss of share into Southeast Asia or sales into Southeast Asia. Whey protein concentrates are also up more than 20%. So still really strong demand for those higher concentration whey products, and butter up 16%, but obviously those numbers are quite small. And just looking at the destination for US exports, you can see that really strong growth in Mexico, Steve. Just about every of those sort of major markets for cheese out of the US are stronger, with the notable exception of Australia. So,
Yeah.
not as much being imported into Australia. There are ample stocks of local production in Australia at the moment, and obviously New Zealand product available. So, but that's the only reduction there across those major markets for US cheese exports. It's a pretty good month for the
Mm,
US.
very strong.
Just turning now to production, Steve, what have you got?
So US product output growth, some high movements in these bars. The cheese is up 1.7%. We see here that cheddar's almost back to flat after many months of being significantly lower. You can see mozzarella still cruising up there, up near 5% up in the month. Butter is still also well supplied, and that looks odd with skim milk powder and non-fat being down so much. But the fact that mozzarella production is strong year on year is releasing a lot more fat, and therefore butter production is being well supplied. And there is a bit more cream about, so cream multiples falling. So that's encouraging. Just pointing out there, this is the lowest skim milk powder and non-fat production since 2018, September 18. So this,
Wow.
this really is a quitting of that in the mix. What's the cheese? I think cheese is the most interesting thing here, Joe. The changes in cheese between the two big types.
Yeah, sure. And this chart of US daily cheddar production is just showing that trend that we've had cheddar production well below previous years just in the last couple of months, but just making a bit of a comeback there, Steve, just turning upwards at the end. And if we look across to the daily mozzarella production, that has sort of been a lot higher early in the year, but it's just plateauing along there, still well above, you know, those prior year comparables. But the question is, I guess, for how long? Seeing slower food service in the US, so a bit of softness in demand in food service, and a few more people eating out at home. So it'll be interesting to see how that switches around in the next couple of months.
It will be, yeah. Looking at other products, the side products, and just comparing the changes in the whey complex. When you look at cheese on the left-hand side, very subtle movements there when you compare to what's going on in the whey streams. Still a lot of whey solids moving away from dry whey into WPI. It's quite a stunning growth there. The other interesting thing is MPC. We see fairly heavy declines in skim milk powder and non-fat, but MPCs are up. And moving to the next chart, when we add them together and put them into a rolling curve, Joe, that's quite a good story.
Yes, Steve. So just looking at this rolling annual skim milk powder, non-fat dry milk and MPC production, and this is a rolling annual total combined. And you can just see fairly steady there until we get to the impact of COVID and a bit of a slowdown in terms of cheese production as a result. And then we just see that building of skim milk powder production as China came back into the market to restock, and that really shorted the world. And now we're just seeing that combined production come back down to earth a little bit. Just see that little uptick at the end, and that's all about that MPC increase in production. So just an interesting long-term trend there, Steve.
Yeah, it is. Some data updates from China also came in overnight. Look, I've only included, thankfully, one chart here, Joe. There's a lot of charts we pull out of this, but this is the key one. Whole milk powder stocks to use, still trending downwards, but still above 2019, the pre-COVID era. So you can see the drama that's been going in the last couple of years, but we just compare that to 2019 as a normalized kind of stock level, it seems. So we're still above that. GDT Pulse came in this morning. Two quick results. Skim milk powder down slightly. That's following the vibe we've seen in all other markets. Down a little bit, 1.4% or $40 a ton US on last week's GDT. Down 1.1% on the last pulse. In whole milk powder, slightly up this time. Up $20 on the last GDT, down 15 on the previous pulse. So not much movement there. It's still pretty steady.
A
Joe,
faint pulse.
chart of the week.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. And for the chart of the week, we're just looking at some interesting numbers out of the EU. And this is an annual survey of EU dairy cow numbers. And we're just seeing that quite significant decline in the June figures for 2024 compared to the prior years. And just looking at the country level changes, what we're seeing is big movement there out of Italy. And in fact, Italy and Germany lost the most cows in absolute terms. They made up 56% of the reduction in cow numbers. Italy doesn't really line up with the milk production data to date, Steve, because milk production out of Italy appears to be up, but these cow numbers are well down. And we are hearing those reports of of cream going across the border to Italy, some shortages there. So a little bit of a disconnect with the numbers there. Netherlands is down a bit, but this is before the blue tongue virus really hit. And where obviously the destocking is still very minimal in terms of the Netherlands. Ireland, there you can see there's only about a 1.4% reduction in cow numbers there. So those double-digit reductions we saw earlier this year are really all about that terrible weather, very wet conditions, not any real herd reduction that we're seeing there, Steve.
Okay, very interesting. That is quite interesting across that landscape.
Sure.
All right. Well, that's all we've got this week. Next week, we'll be back together. But that's all from us. Thanks for watching. See you soon.